Hello and welcome to Right Talk Wednesday. I'm your host, Kit Kalestow, and I am very excited this week to be here with Russell Nohelty, who I connected through, I believe, a Substack challenge or Substack online thing last year. And I just really enjoy, he writes a lot about sustainable careers, Substack, Kickstarter, backed a couple of his projects. And so I'm just looking forward to just talking writing. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I get it. Right. Like the two, like both ways. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
What a great name for a show.
Oh, thank you. Um, so to kind of begin, of course, all of the links will be in our show notes on YouTube and on our podcast platform. But why don't we start by just introducing you to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a USA Today best-selling author. I've been doing creative stuff since college, since I graduated college. I've been in publishing since 2010. I've made all the books you see behind me, either co-written or written. I somehow got into nonfiction. I think the reason that people resonate with the stuff that I do, if they do, is because like I made my bones in fiction and in like weird ways to make money that you're not supposed to be able to make money in, like doing conventions and like Kickstarter and all of these things that people said were not the right way to make money, which was like the right way to make money was like being KU, write in the right genre, write to market, write a book a month. And just like I have literally never made money that way. And I've been a six-figure creative since 2017 and full-time since 2015. So I've always just been like, well, like that can't be right because I'm literally here. And a lot of my friends who work in comics or in other industries, just like that's not been their experience like that. And publishing is just such a wide thing that I think like I have a little cult following because of like the fact that I just think that the way that things have always been done is a little dumb, and I have the bones to back it up. Like I have the receipts and the bona fides to back it up.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes, I am right there with you. I am happy to clear five figures with the change on the end some months, but I also have fallen in and out of publishing, and so I have reasons for that. But yes, the KU thing especially. I mean, KU just made me cry every time I saw my page reads. I'm like, okay, I could sell this book for 99 cents and make 35 cents on a sale, or have somebody read it and I get 12 cents. I'm like, nah. And that I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, so no, I love it. So let's just dive right in. So Kickstarter, I have always heard, is a good way to get upfront money to pay for your production costs. You usually have to have a cover before you go on Kickstarter, but like your editing, your print runs and any of the goodies that you do. It sounds like though that you use Kickstarter for even more than that. So let's start with Kickstarter because I know that's where a lot of authors have questions.
Sure. So I tend to believe that first, you should not spend a bunch of time, money, and effort on Kickstarter the first time you use it until you know you like it. Um, but also that you can do just about anything. I recommend you have the book edited at least uh, before you put it on Kickstarter, only because um, you really can't run another campaign until well, there's two reasons. One is your mental health. Look, like the longer that a book doesn't come out after you have money for it, the more, especially if you're a neurodivergent, you probably are going to start worrying and it's going to eat up all of your thoughts and like and life. And so like just for your own mental health, you want to have the book out as soon as humanly possible. I obviously not everyone is like that, but most people that I talk to regret not having the book done sooner than later. Now, there's some things you can't do, like if you are doing a comic book and you have to print overseas, like you have to wait for the book to come in. But books, oof. Okay, I'm gonna say this. It might be controversial, but like it doesn't cost that much to make a book really good. Like you can get editing for like a few like call it $1,000 for a book, like depending on how long it is. You can get a cover for less than $500, a really nice cover for $500. Like you can get for under 2 grand, easily under 2 grand, like a book to look as good as anything that exists on the market. And probably you can get it for under $1,000. And so you should probably like you can probably self-fund getting a book ready to to at least be ready to format after your book campaign is over. Like that is not always like comics generally cost about $2,500 an issue to produce. So it's like if you have, and then you have to pay printing and all of this other stuff. It's really hard. Like there's all of these things. Kids books generally need to print overseas as well. So like there are like systemic reasons why it's a lot harder to have a comic done before your Kickstarter is done. And kids books and games need prototyping. But like a book, we know how to print books. Like we know how to print black and white books. We've been doing it for hundreds of years. And we can do it pretty well, even POD, and it's not super prohibitive to cost. Whereas like with comics, it is very expensive to print on demand comics and not print overseas. So all that being said, you can not have any of this stuff work. But the more of it you have done, the better your marketing will be. And the better your marketing is, the more you will make. And the more you make, the more you'll be able to invest back in the product. So if you have not written a book, you have no idea what that book is about. I've done this. I've made 70 or so books. If you do not, and then every time, the only time I knew what a book's title was. I may have known what the vibes were, but books change wildly between beginning and end. So if you're going to say, my book's going to be about that, and then take money for it, suddenly your book has to be about that. It can't really be about a different thing. And like, even if you were the greatest plotter in the world, you probably are going to have something that changes throughout the course of your thing. And if you are not the greatest plotter ever, and especially if you're like a pantser who like writes by the seat of their pants, like your book's going to change wildly. Like the characters that you thought maybe in a love story may hate each other. Like, I don't know like what happens, but like these are all like the chaos agent stuff that is like hard to predict. And it's one thing to take down a pre-order if you don't do a book, which is I mean, I know a lot of people who put a pre-order date up and then they write to the pre-order date. But if they don't hit that pre-order date, they can always cancel that book. Just really hard to refund everyone on Kickstarter. So anyway, yes, you can do all of the things that you said, but then all of the things I said will be unintended consequences of what you will deal with.
No, I get it. And I would be totally remiss if I didn't put a plug in for Epona Author Solutions editing because I deliberately have my editing prices low. I have over 20 years writing and publishing books, and I don't feel like anybody should be turned away from a good edit for a lack of funds. And so I guarantee you, you could book me and I will edit your book for, depending on length, easily 500 or less. So yeah, I'm just going to put that plug out there. But I also agree as somebody who started off my career as a very type A exacting plotter. And my biggest frustration was the book changed. So yeah, I agree with everything you said there about having the book ready.
At least to go to editing.
Yes.
So like your book should be ready. And like Probably through developmental editing. So like it should be ready for copy editing. I don't necessarily think it needs to go to the copy editor. You probably want to have booked the copy editor, or like at least told them roughly like what time you're thinking before the campaign is over. But like you should for sure have a drafted book ready to go,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you cannot market a book that hasn't been written.
Yeah. So that way then you know the arc, you know the beats, you know the tropes, you know all the stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. You know what the
totally.
blurb is going to be, like you know what the themes are going to be. Kickstarter is is as much about the marketing and about the case you make for your book than it is about the campaign. So like the campaign page is like one piece of it. But like if you don't like, there are going to be themes and characters and subplots and all these sorts of things that and characters you fall in love with, like the twists and turns that you can only talk about once you've written the book. And like those bits are as important to the Kickstarter success and the campaign page design as anything else that you do.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to reach forward here. So the things that I have backed have quite often been stuffed animals. Like this is from a company called Weighted Wildlife. It is a
Sure,
weighted plushie, so it's got some heft to it to hold it.
sure,
Deal with those stressful customer calls. So,
sure.
I bought some really cool dice off of there. And on one hand, you know exactly what you're getting. You see pictures, they do prototypes. On the other hand, it's often a very long process. Like it was only, I want to say about 4 months for the plushie, which was like crazy short. I have dice I'm waiting on that I backed last summer that I think will be here before this summer. But again, the fulfillment date was far out. The books that I've backed, because I get the digital books, I've had within like 2 weeks of the campaign editing. There's instant gratification there.
Right.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about like the marketing case, because the books that I have backed, I've either been interested in the topic, which was your projects, like, oh yeah, this is something I need to know more about, or they've been in genres that I read that I could back for $1, and I thought this would be nice to just, back the author.
Sure. Okay, so I call this the case for your book. And generally when you do a 30-day campaign, it comes down to, well, I don't know exactly the amount of I'm just so there's roughly a 5-day window before your campaign launches where you are going to be like, usually you'll have like an early bird perk, whether it's a drop-in price or extra books or like something. And that's when you're like, hey, just so you know, you are like, the campaign's live. Look at how great we're doing. Oh, there's usually like a bonus or something. So like, look at this bonus. And then you're like, oh, early bird perks are going away. Usually that lasts about 3 to 5 days. Um, I have it last 5 days. So it's Tuesday. If I launch on a Tuesday, it's like Tuesday to Sunday. And that I'll be sending daily emails basically during that time. Then the campaign shifts to talking about the sideways sales letter. So sideways sales letter is a concept by Jeff Walker, I believe his name is, that you basically are taking your campaign page and you're breaking it up across multiple emails and you're just sending it out. Like literally you're just like sending it out in blocks. Like if you have a why I'm doing this section, a blurb section, a character section, a uh, a uh, a world section. Like literally, each of those is its own email. It's like you just literally basically copy and pasting the the thing. You're doing some work to edit it in there so it reads like an email. But in general, the rule is like nobody is reading your sales page all the way through. And everyone has missed something. Almost everyone has missed something. Even if they backed the campaign, it might make them back more. My rule when I do marketing is once I send a piece of marketing, I can never send that piece of marketing again. Like everyone who backed has backed from that reason. But I can send daily. People ask me why I send daily emails. I'm like, well, now I've got like, hey, we launched. Um, hey, we're doing great. Hey, here's a bonus. Hey, bonuses are closing tomorrow. Hey, bonuses are closed. Then, hey, look at this book. Here's why I did it. Here's why, here's a cool world. Here's a cool character. Here's a cool supporting character. Here's a cool like thing. Here's a cool theme. And like whatever's on the page. Now I'm like 12, like that's 12 emails. Like, and I need to send all of them because someone's going to have missed something that's going to make them back or back for a higher number. Okay, so now we're like 12 days into a campaign. Um, can do a couple of things here. The one you definitely should do is what I call praise and objections. Either you want to have so what praise does is it it shows people why they should like, oh, people say about my books, they make me feel like I have agency in a world that like takes it away, wants to take it away from me. And so it's like that's an email. Like that's so what are people saying in your reviews? The main things that people are saying in your reviews, maybe like 3 to 5 of those. That's the first half. But the second half is what are people saying? What do people think about my book that is not true? So for Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, people are like, I don't read horror. Great. It's not horror. People in my for the Godsverse Chronicles are like, why would I read anything but romance? Romance ends happily. Good news, I write Noble Bright. So like the heroes always get what they win in the end. Um, so like these are the things that are like, oh, like I'm a het cis white man. So like people always think that I'm gonna fridge the girl, the lead, or like they're going to come across as like some sex bomb caricature. And so like I know you think that. Everyone who's ever met me has when I tell them I write fantasy featuring like strong female leads, every single one is like, I'm sure I know what kind of leads you write. And like, so like I just like, you know what people say about your book that's not true, but like that seems true. You know, it's like I look healthy. I'm very chronically ill. I have been chronically ill my whole life almost. So like this is going to take all of my energy today to be on this call and like that's okay. I choose to spend my energy when I'm on calls doing this and making it seem like I'm very high energy so the right people then come and like see how excited I am. So like now we have like an entire thing. We have like praise. We have objections. We then like you want to do 2 or 3 days. We're like, hey, there's 2 days left. Hey, there's 1 day left. Hey, there's 0 days left. It's the last day. So like now we're at, what is that? 12, 17, 19 or 20 emails that you're sending throughout the campaign. And never have you said the same thing twice. You've said everything. And then you probably want to layer in some like, oh, this bonus is happening. This bonus is expiring. Here's what the new perk is. Here's what the new stretch goal is. And so like now we're sitting at like 20 or 30 emails that we can send. And I don't know. Like, look, there's plenty of people who get annoyed when I send emails. I'm sure. But like I have found over time, you don't, the people that get annoyed because you keep sending the same dang email every time. It reads the same. It looks the same. It's like it doesn't have any nuance to it. And like the thing that you can do tomorrow that is different is start thinking that instead of how you send one email a month, what if instead you like made a case, a nuanced case for things like when we're doing our conference and it's like, you know, I just did one that's like bending reality like a time mage and like I'm like that's a whole different conversation than like last month we were talking about like a whole different top but like I think of it as like when they have a conference once a year, you have basically 12 monthly you have like 12 monthly series you can send if you want to, that's going to convince people to buy. And the first five are probably going to do nothing. You're just like building the case. Like, oh, this is interesting. I should put it on my list. And as you get closer to the thing, you get more and more and more and more and more like, oh, here's a thing. Here's like a more interesting way. Here's a more nuanced thing. But the more you build that case early, the more nuanced case and interesting case you can make later. And the reason why so many people hate marketing is because they never make the loud case so that they can make the nuanced case. And those are two very different things, and they work in tandem together. You can't make the nuanced case unless people know your book is live. But the minute they know your book is live, then you can make the nuanced case about like, actually, you know who I really love? This character over here. But like, you can't talk about the tertiary love interest until you talk about who the main characters are.
Oh my God, first of all, that reality bending email is in my inbox to read because the subject line caught my attention. I'm like, I've got to read that. That looks interesting. But also, you just blew my mind because I struggle with marketing and I freely admit it. I start to think about writing. Yeah, you just totally changed the way that I think about marketing because I think about writing things and my head just kind of just goes splody and that's it. So that tidbit was amazing.
Yay. That's great. Yeah, I mean, writers should be the best marketers because like the whole point of marketing is telling stories. And all you're trying to do is be like, oh, I've told 10 stories. How do I tell a story today that is interesting but different?
Wow. My goodness. That's just, I'm sorry. My mind's just blown. I have been asking for years different people to explain marketing to me, and nobody has been able to do so in a way that makes sense. And that doesn't feel smarmy, because
Right.
all the internet marketers and stuff out there tell you how to do things. It's like, nah, that doesn't work with me.
Well, so most internet marketing, thank you. This comes down to a big thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is most internet marketing is set up to teach you how to exist, assuming that money is the end, instead of money being the means. And so if money is the end, then it doesn't matter. Like you have to be agnostic to what you sell. It's like, okay, well, like what you want is the most money. And so you're going to make choices. Well, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't know, sell something your audience wants and like sell a product and like, but like most creatives and not just creative people, but like a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people like that, they don't believe that money is the end. Like money is the means to do the thing that I want to do. And the minute that you start to see that like, oh, you're talking to me as if money is the end. Suddenly you're like, well, I want it actually stopped me feeling gross when I would read that kind of thing. Cause I'm like, oh, you just like don't like this is fundamentally my goal is to make enough money to let me to lead the life I want to so I can keep making the thing that I love. You, your end goal is to get money to do the things you want or whatever. And like so the minute that you can see that, it like changed so much for me.
Yeah. I've always described it as treating the reader like an ATM
Hmm.
that and you're looking for a transactional relationship with the reader versus, hey, I write this cool stuff. You like the same cool stuff I do. Let's like cool stuff together. I'll write, a community.
Right. And so if
Yeah.
you go when you start thinking about your marketing as the means. Like it is the mean is how you connect with readers. It's how you make the means. It's how you make the means to make the thing. Then it lets you be like, well, I don't know, like am I going to make maximum money by writing a reality bending email? Like No, probably, but like maybe one person will enjoy it and maybe it will hook all of that stuff. And like it's kind of like worth it if like 10 people really respond to it and then seven over here because I'm trying to thread this for years. I've been trying to make this case that I'm able to make now only because I've got like three books and like Monica and I have written like a dozen other books. So like I think of it as like this this thread that keeps going and all I'm trying to do is get you a little bit more and find one more person here and five more people here and 10 more people to make a decision here. And the way that I do that is to I optimize for joy. And I'll tell you, those reality bending emails, like they were really fun to write.
They felt fun. I mean, it landed in my inbox. And I can tell you, even though I'm not in a position to do an in-person conference, even if we hadn't spoken today, but definitely now, I'm going to be putting out on my social media, hey, maybe you should look at this conference. Maybe you should look at this person's stuff because
Right.
I was like, I'd like to bend reality. This sounds fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, it just totally jumped out at me.
Yeah, so if you have like a series, like a signature series, we usually recommend like a writer have a signature series of like 5, 10, probably like 10 books or more that like is in one universe, and you're just going to talk about it forever. Like once you have that series, it's just like, well, this is in my pipeline forever. Now, like if you're just going to keep writing in that one world, it becomes like every month how can I make a fun way into this world? Maybe you do a deal. Maybe you do a promo. Maybe you just like write Greta's diaries from like new entries from Greta's diaries and it goes back to like these are from my series. You can go back, but like you no longer have to like once you have these longer series or these like tentpole things you're going to talk about, it's just like how can I keep making it fun? Assuming that eventually someone's going to read the dang blurb for book one. Or maybe the first email of every month. It's like, hey, here you go. Here's the series, but like, let us have like a fun conversation. And then how can I design products in that series? Like, how can I do a letter writing campaign for like Miss Marple's School for Girls or like whatever the thing is, it just ends up being like how how can I show readers that this series is worth their time? And it is almost never by saying go buy this book. It is sometimes, maybe one-fifth of the time, but Amazon has trained us to go for the easy sale and do go for the shallow sale. And like the beauty of direct sales, the beauty of owning the relationship with your reader is like you can have conversations to get the other four-fifths of people into your series. With the assumption that as long as you have a good blurb, a good cover, and a good look inside, what people are gonna find it and like the right people are gonna find it. Like you can start really having fun with doing with like getting people into the books.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna have to rethink everything now, but I love it because everything I write is set. I've invented a multiverse for my universe, but it's all set within the same universe. So that is great. Before we close, and you are one of those guests, like all of them, that I could talk to forever, and might have to have you come back, and we'll talk specifically about Substack and some other things when both of our schedules and energy levels and everything align. But I want to talk about the conference because
Sure.
we looked at the calendar and this episode is going to go live right before the conference starts.
Sure.
but I want to make sure our viewers, our listeners know about it and also know how to connect with you. So the conference you said is Writer MBA.
Yeah, so Writer MBA at writermba.com. It's my business partner and I designed this conference like 2 years ago. We've been slowly expanding it out into its full breadth. So like this is the first time you're going to see the whole conference and the mastermind. Um, and so we have a mastermind component and a conference component. It's in New Orleans this year. Um, it was in New Orleans last year as well. But it's basically business school for writers or like a business conference for writers, but like really, all right, I'm gonna do it again. I know I've been like going off on a tangent this whole time, but like I'm gonna go off on one more tangent, which is the
Go for
thing,
it.
conferences over-index for information. And the one thing that most humans in this world right now don't need is more information. They are riddled with information. People today ask me all the time, like, what do I do next? And I'm like, I don't know. It's all out there. Like, there's not a new thing. You just like figure out the strategies that work with the things that are going. But like what we're dying for, what we have epidemics for is like connection. So there is a subset of people who get information at conferences. That's the way that they connect. And like there are an infinite number of conferences for them. There are people who are in KU and like doing all of these things and like they they write books and they market books in a pretty and they have success in a pretty standard way. But there are these other people who like have been successful doing these other things like direct sales or conference. Or they had a podcast. They had some other weird thing, and they've been yelling into the abyss that like this is a thing you should worry about, or this is the thing you should consider for years, and they have always been roundly rejected until recently. And so we want to give a space for those people, like those people that want to connect with other people who are doing things differently. And like that old like think differently like Apple thing, it's like this is a conference to connect with people who have also been screaming into the abyss for years about new, interesting, weird things, and and to find other people that can connect. We like to say everyone who comes to our conference has a lock and a key, and the only thing that we know is somebody can open your lock and you have the key to someone else's lock. I don't know who it is. I don't know where it is. But like our goal now is to connect you and unlock every single lock by the time this is open. This is over. So that's our conference.
That sounds absolutely freaking amazing. That really does. As somebody who's gone to those other conferences and been just so overwhelmed, and it's like, where do you start? What do you do? That sounds so refreshing.
Yeah, and look, there are those. I go to those other conferences too. Like, I have nothing against those conferences. There will be information at this conference. We have some amazing speakers. We have some amazing sponsors and some amazing vendors. Um, but we think that conferences should over-index on connection and provide the right information or some strategies. Because even when we have talks, we are encouraging our speakers to think differently about the talks too. So we want to like break talks. We want to not do a 50-minute talk and a 10-minute Q&A. We want to have maybe like 30 minutes of talking, 30 minutes of Q&A. We want to do things like hot seats and like tear downs and like all whatever. We encourage people who are speaking with us to like assume you don't have to give the talk that you give at every conference because it's online. And whenever I do a talk, I'm always like, well, like, aren't they going to see it online though? Like, can't they just, do I have to do the deck? Like the deck is so boring. It's like it's fine. Like I will do the deck, but like you probably have seen the deck. Like, and if you don't haven't seen the deck, you can read the book or like go look at the deck online or like I've done the deck before. Like sometimes you do the deck like 20 times a year. I mean, so we are not opposed to people doing a presentation like they previously did, but like we want to find ways to introduce new ways to converse even when we're talking about slide deck presentations and such, because we know that people in our community think differently and they have different needs. They probably have already played with the thing and they have like three questions. And they're like, oh, I'm going to go to this conference and I need to ask Barnes and Noble, three questions, and like they're very in-depth questions. I've studied the problem. I already know the thing. I need to talk to her for 30 seconds. And if I can just talk to the rep from Barnes and Noble for like maybe 2 minutes, like it will solve the problems. And I know it will solve the problems because like I've researched what the problems are and the solutions to them.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm in grad school now. And so for each class, you write a 20-page paper and then you have to do the presentation with the PowerPoint. And it's like, can I just not?
Yeah,
You guys out there don't care about my research. You probably don't care about my topic. Can I
right.
just talk about something, that would interest you? And I actually did that with my last presentation. And it was the best well-received presentation I've ever done. Okay,
Mm,
because I was like, I'm going to answer the teacher's questions, but I am not going to go through, these are my sources. This is the research, blah, blah, blah.
right.
Threw in a picture of She-Hulk. The crowd erupted. It was great.
Yeah, for
but it
sure, for
but it
sure.
was very not academic either. So no, that's wonderful. That sounds great. I will definitely encourage everybody to check out the website, check out the conference. And again, all of those links are going to be in the show notes, but let's just go ahead and tell our listeners and viewers where they can find out more about you and your work.
Sure. It's probably the best place is the author stack. That's my blog where I have a lot of like author growth tactics and a lot of different strategies. Also, we have a ton of books on Amazon and other retailers. So you can find my fiction, nonfiction at my own website too. But like probably for the crowd that we're talking about, the authorstack.com or Writer MBA is the best place.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it and very much appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.